Welcome to Radio Nyra, RDU, North Carolina, North America's top radio station for the South Asian and Indian American community. I'm your host, Steve Rao, live from the All-America city of Morrisville as our host on the Leader Show. And I'm proud today to be here with Dr. 𝗀𝗽𝗲𝗇𝗏, candidate for Wake County Sheriff in the Democratic primary. Dr. Taylor, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I look forward to our conversation.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your background in law enforcement. You're a doctorate, a PhD in criminal justice. If you just explain a little bit about your background, how many years you spent in law enforcement. I wanted to save time today on the station to make sure. And by the way, for those of you listening, we're on 99.9 FM HD4, 1490 AM, and 101.9 FM Durham. So please tune in. So Dr. Taylor, your background, how long have you been in law enforcement?
Well, I like to introduce myself as Dr. Colonel Chief Roy Taylor. Again, I do have a PhD in criminal justice. I just retired on the 31st of March as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve as a military police officer. And I am the chief of police for federal, state, local, and private agencies. And I've been doing that for the past 26 years with an overall career in law enforcement of 40 years. One of the things that I do that's really unique, and this is how I use my PhD, as I'm an expert witness in federal court. And in the past 6 years, I've done over 160 cases dealing with police procedures, which could be anywhere from the shooting death of a person in psychiatric crisis to high-speed chases, canine utilization, SWAT team maneuvers. But I am an expert witness in court and explain those things to the jury so they can decide if what the police did was right or wrong.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, we thank you for that. And so you're now the chief of Capitol Police, and you're running for the Wake County Sheriff. So for those of us listening, it would be very helpful for our audience for you to explain, before you talk about why you're running, of what the Wake County Sheriff Office does. That would be very helpful.
It is, because a lot of people don't realize the depth and the variety of things the sheriff's office does. Of course, most people know that it's a law enforcement agency. So we are responsible for the unincorporated areas of Wake County. So that means anything that's not inside the city limits. So Morrisville has some areas of that unincorporated area around it, or it used to have a lot more than it does now. But there are about 205,000 people living in unincorporated areas of the county. I live in Wake Forest, but I'm actually in unincorporated area. So the sheriff's office supports my home. The other things that we do that may not be as readily apparent is we serve civil papers. So if you're ever involved in a lawsuit, a divorce, or anything that has anything to do with judicial paperwork, a lot of times it's the sheriff's office that serves it. The sheriff's office also serves judgment. So if you are sued and the court finds against you and orders you to pay the plaintiff money, then the sheriff's office will serve that notice. And if you don't pay within the prescribed amount of time, the sheriff's office actually comes out and executes an order to sell your property. So they would hold an auction to pay off your judgment. We also do evictions. So if you have rental property and the tenant doesn't pay and you get the paperwork from the courthouse, we will come and set those people out. So that's something we do that's kind of on the civil nature. And then we also run the detention center. So we have over 1,300 people on a daily basis who are either being held for trial or are serving a sentence based upon a conviction from the court. And so we have to house them, feed them, care for them, do their medical, dental, anything that's necessary to make that person, survive and make sure that their constitutional rights are upheld is our responsibility. So if we have Muslim people in the jail, we have to have halal meals. If we have Jewish people in the jail, we have to have kosher meals. So again, we have to be respectful of their beliefs. And that takes, again, a leader that understands those differences and how to respect those differences. The last thing that we do is secure the courthouse. And so we make sure that the courthouse is weapon free and that the judges are able to carry out the business of the court without having to worry about being assaulted. So you can see that it's a lot more than a law enforcement agency like the Morrisville Police Department. We have a lot of different facets to it.
Sheriff sales too, serving papers. I mean, these kinds of things are done by the sheriff's office. You'll see.
Correct.
Can they give speeding tickets and stuff? That's still enforceable, right? If you get a police,
yes,
you get pulled over by a sheriff.
Right. They're just like a city police officer. They can operate inside the city. So if you get pulled over by a deputy on Main Street in Apex, they can write you a ticket there. They don't have to only do law enforcement in the unincorporated areas, but that's our primary responsibility.
Okay, all right, great. Unincorporated areas, very helpful. And so a lot of people, new immigrants here, they don't really understand the different levels of government. Now, why sheriff? You've been very successful, getting to the, you could do a lot of great things. You're a very smart guy. Why sheriff? Why are you running now? What are the things that you want to do as a Wake County sheriff?
Well, I was a deputy sheriff back in the 90s under John Baker, and the department had a lot of pride. It did a lot of good things for the community. And under the current leadership, it's really fallen. The morale is down. The number of personnel is down to a dangerous level. So I want to come back, rebuild the ~$CRIE, the pride in the agency, make it a place that people desire to come and work, that it's a go-to destination, not one to run away from. We want to hire people that will treat the citizens, with respect, observe their constitutional rights, and be there as a resource for the people. And it takes a leader to do that. And with my, varied background in federal, state, local, and private agencies, I think I'm the one that can bring that leadership to the sheriff's office. And with my PhD, once we identify the programs that are necessary to meet the needs of the community, then I know how to go out and research them. I know how to get grants from the Bureau of Justice Assistance to implement those programs, and it would cost maybe 25 cents on the dollar to the taxpayer to implement these programs. And again, I say what is important to the citizens, not what Roy Taylor thinks is important, but I want to listen to you, find out what your individual communities need, and address those needs first.
Fantastic, great answer. What if let's say you win this thing and you win the general election, and we're going to, at the end, we got about 2 minutes late, remain 3 minutes late, and we're going to talk about the primary where you can vote. What are the 1 or 2 things that you want to be remembered for?
Making a difference in mental health. As an expert witness in 2016, I had a week where I received 6 cases where the police shot and killed somebody that was having a psychiatric episode. And I thought, wow, if one expert out of the whole country gets 6 cases in 1 week, this must be a really prolific problem. So I started researching it and found out we do actually kill across the country hundreds of people. And that's what I did my dissertation on for my PhD, was crisis intervention training and how we can implement that into the field and into our dispatchers. And I want to create programs where the ambulance shows up for these type of calls first with specially trained paramedics or social workers, and let them have the first crack at taking care of this issue. And we'll have a deputy close by in case it's one that does involve a weapon of some sort. So we'll protect the ambulance people. But a lot of times people believe that when a deputy with a gun shows up that they're going to go to jail or it's some other hideous problem. And if we reverse the roles and let the EMS people come who we know are there to help us, maybe that'll help divert some of these problems. But that's my one goal, is to really assist us in diverting people from the criminal justice system when they have mental illness, and to reduce the number of people who get hurt or injured by law enforcement.
Talk about managing the justice centers, the prison, the prison centers. I've talked with Attorney General Stein about reentry for opioid abuse, and I've got a couple of clients in the technology sector that are actually managing that. So real quickly before we leave, talk to me about opioid abuse. Do you see an opportunity as the sheriff to help in that area in Wake County?
Absolutely. About the opioid epidemic, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have quite a crisis with drugs, opioids, methamphetamines. The sheriff's office has done a good job partnering with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, and collaboratively working with our federal and state partners trying to get drugs off the street. But I also want to make sure that we not decriminalize drugs, but decriminalize the addiction, so that if you fall prey to this addiction, that you're not continuously in the criminal justice system, that we get you the help you need, get you cleaned up, and get you back as a productive member of society. Okay,
I mean, it's been a remarkable. We could probably spend an hour, but you've really answered all of our questions. Do you, are there any final thoughts before we tell everyone where to vote? And you can stay with me for that, and how to vote. Any final thoughts you want to share with our community?
Well, your community is one that doesn't have a whole lot of interaction with law enforcement, but I want you to feel comfortable in contacting us. And if you have young people in your community that are interested in being in law enforcement, I'd love to have them, because everybody, we have so many different cultures in our community now, and it's difficult for us all to understand the mores of each culture. And so by having people from the community and the sheriff's office, I think we'll be better able to serve you.
Okay, well, is there a place people can go to learn more about you?
Absolutely. 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏
us. She was a Democratic candidate for Wake County Sheriff. And the other thing I'll remind, he's with me towards the end. Just want to just let people know that if you're not registered to vote, you can register and vote through early voting. Okay. And you can just go to Wake County Board of Elections website and you can get the polling sites where you can go in this area to vote. Get out and vote. It's your most important democratic right. I've got right with me the International Human Rights Declaration I got from the Civil Rights Museum. And in this, it says the right to vote is a right in any democracy, one of those fundamental rights. So get out and vote for your primary, make your voice heard. Also, the last day to request absentee ballots is May 10th, and they must be delivered to the Board of Elections by 5 p.m. on election day. So please get out there and vote. If you're going to be out of town on primary day, please cast your vote. We want to thank all the candidates out there who've had the courage to put their name on the ballot. I've done so 4 times, and I know it takes a lot of work, and there's nothing like a campaign, Roy. I know, believe me, I've done it for 12 years and just got off one. And thank you for having the courage to take yourself out of the comfort zone and putting yourself before the people in our democracy. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rao, for your service. And it is a big challenge, but we understand the difficult things we have to face, and it takes people that have the intelligence and background to solve them problems.
Absolutely. You've been listening to Radio Nyra, North Raleigh-Durham, here on 101.9 FM Durham, 1490 AM, and 101 and 99.9 FM HD4. We're also North America's top South Asian and Indian radio station. We've been with Dr. Roy Taylor, Democratic County for Sheriff. Thank you all so much. We'll be back for another edition of Leaders next week. I'm your host, Steve Rao. Thank you all so much.